I don't think, but I survived it, but I don't think enough is really, it's interesting that you see so little talked about and like pushed in the media about like, wheelchair access in airplanes, but,
Right.
pretty hard to fly if you're a disabled person,
Yeah.
like if you're
Delta
wheelchair bound, pretty hard.
Delta is actually working on
I see
where
that.
you seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah,
But it
very
needs to
very
be
cool.
like a regular thing, like it's kind of crazy. Like people are like, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, all right, so I take a flight to Thailand. What does that include? What does that mean for me as somebody bound in a wheelchair, right?
Right.
So that means you got to go on a flight that's more than 15 hours, probably more than 20 in some cases, depending on delays and everything. And it means that you got to plan out not to drink or eat anything beforehand, not to drink anything on the plane, because you can't use the bathroom once you're on that plane. You just
Right.
got to sit there. So you got to go 20 hours without using the bathroom at all. So that means you're not drinking or eating for 20 hours, and then like it's just crazy. And like and also if you're in a wheelchair, it's like very uncomfortable, the chairs and stuff, but you just got to deal
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
And
Funny.
I don't
Oh,
think
go
people
ahead.
really think about, I don't think people like really realize like how difficult that all is, I guess.
And you bring up a good point. Here's the thing: a lot of people, like, whenever I tell them stories about like traveling or accessibility or anything like that, they're always dumbfounded. They're like, "What? Like this should just be like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it should." But the problem is just like we're talking about right now. You assume that it's taken care of, so there's no change needed. You know what I mean? So the best way to
Yep.
combat that is to make people aware. You
Yeah,
know?
like I always make sure if I travel, I bring a bunch of cash, because you never know who you're gonna have to bribe to do what, right? Like
Right.
I've had to wave down random strangers who look strong and be like, "Hey, man, can you carry me from there to there? I'll give you $20." And they're like,
Yeah.
"What the fuck?" And it's like, "I'll give you $50." Okay, deal. Like done.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was going to Texas. It's not the United States is actually the worst. Asian countries and European countries are way better than America. Uh, like I remember I had to pay someone in Texas to get on a plane because I was gonna miss it, man. And like they're just like, well, they didn't really know what to do. And I saw one dude and I was like, hey man, I'll give you $50 to carry me up on that airplane. And he goes, he said, okay. And then he actually didn't even take my money. It's like a Spanish dude. He's like, nah, it's all good. And I was like, sure. He's like, all right. And I was like, I'll buy you a drink on the plane. But
That's
like he
cool,
ended up doing
man.
it. But and then like same thing, same airport. When I got to a different point of that airport, different leg of the trip, I had to pay someone to push. They give you like a wheelchair, and like I had to pay someone to push my chair faster through the airport, because it's like, hey, I'm gonna be late
Yeah.
for this flight, man. I can't only go this speed. I'll give you, $20 if you run me to the gate. And they're just like, done deal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't think people like talk about that stuff enough, and it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't have to like bribe your way through situations, and I don't
Well,
know.
see
It's weird.
that's one of the things that's okay. Let me rewind here. So that's one of my like little side notes in this life, right? Like I want to bring awareness through myself, right? Like I do so many things. I do like public speaking, I do this, I do that, I do advocacy, and because all to bring awareness, right? I mean, there's people that like. Have you ever seen the channel Squirmy and Grubs? It's the couple
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So like they do a great job of bringing awareness, right? It's not. I mean, of course, it's a YouTube channel, self promotion, yada yada, but they really do a good job at bringing a lot of the stuff to the light and bring it to the public, right? Because
they do.
that's ultimately what needs to happen.
Yep. And he actually, that guy actually has the same thing I do, just a different type of MD. Like that's what my disability is too. It's different, just it's
Yeah.
different. There's like a million
Yeah.
different things that. But that's why I brought it up, is because you actually, I think, do a very good job of bringing stuff to the forefront, and like
Yeah.
bringing a light to it, which is good. Like just like you said, awareness. That's the word I'm looking for. Like you do a good job of that. Like you raise awareness. Squirmy and Grubs. I don't know if that's how you really say it, but you know what I'm talking about. They raise awareness, and like Rocky, same thing. Rocky raises awareness in his own way. I mean, I know his niche is just gaming, but all of you guys are like, I would say you three are probably the top three that I know of that raise awareness in a light that I feel like is appropriate, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like some people do it kind of in a negative way.
Yeah, you have to do it in a really mainstream way, right? You want to be real, you want to be authenticated, you want to let them know what you're experiencing, but you also have to bring it in a mainstream way that they're gonna be able to absorb.
Yep. And also it's good to have it so that like you're bringing awareness to it, but you're not like, a lot of times what you see is people will be like, oh, well, you know, that swimming pool, blah, 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 needs to have a wheelchair accessible thing for me, you know? And it's like, no, not for you, just for anybody. How about that? But then also, I think there's a thing where some people I think have to realize too, there's just certain things that people with disabilities are not going to be able to do, or it's not like necessary to do. Like there's certain hiking trails that I've seen people, you know, they make a big deal about this park not having an accessible trail, and it's like, yo, like if they make that trail accessible, it's going to lose like a lot of its like, you know, visual beauty or value to the people who can do it. And I think for me, like that's a big thing for me, is like just realizing sometimes you're not going to be able to do what you want to do, and there are like limits and bounds. And I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that, but you know, you can't go paving every trail.
No, you're absolutely right.
You got to be
one
realistic.
Of my friends, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, you just got to be realistic.
Yeah, one of my buddies, he had a spinal injury, and he was like a great advocate for you know, disability rights and awareness and everything, but he did have an unrealistic view, right? Like he's like, anything and everything I could have done before my injury, I should be able to do now. Well, I mean, yes, don't want to say you can't, right? But at the same time, you got to be more realistic, right? Like I'm not going to apply to be a bus driver.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a lifeguard.
Right. Although you and I both honestly could be lifesavers or rescue guards. What am I saying? Lifeguards at the Olympics, right? Because I mean, they're pretty much useless.
Yeah, sure, we could blow a whistle. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think that like my buddy, he was not very realistic with his expectations, but at the same time though, we should also be able to have equal access. Now you brought up a good point a minute ago. So let's say that like homes by default, X amount of homes that were being built by a developer were labeled accessible, right? And that would be something as little as bigger doorways or rails for the shower or whatever, right? The problem with that is now the home's going to be labeled that. So your home buyer being, you know, what, mid 30s, give or take, and I'm just talking general. And if they're not disabled and they see that as like a negative, and they won't buy it, which is a shame.
Yeah, but you're right.
And so it kind of deters it, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
it's all, my thing is just like work on the basic. I think if everybody just works on the basic needs, like I'll give you a good example of an accessibility thing that needs to change. And that's like, and it's a huge overall branch, but I'll give you a broad subject and then like a small sample. So public transportation is the broad one. Public transportation is pretty bad for people in wheelchairs.
Yep.
And then a small sampling of that is a good example. I used to go to Vegas almost every year, every other year. And I love going to Vegas because it's so accessible. Yep. And they had handicapped taxis everywhere. Yep. And it was awesome. Like you could literally go out of a hotel, they'd flag you down a taxi, then you'd have a ride to your next place wherever you needed to go. Now, when you currently go there, because of Uber and Lyft have pretty much taken over and there's not many taxi companies anymore, or, you know, a lot less taxis, Uber and Lyft are they're 1099 employees, so they're not employees, they're contractors, so they don't have to follow the same standards that are set in place for taxi companies. So now if you go to Vegas, it's way harder to get a taxi ride anywhere if you're disabled, because there's not as many handicap taxis because they're not held to the same standards. So what used to be, you just go out and get a ride, whatever. And to have those taxis, it didn't inconvenience normal people, because normal people would
Right.
still use a handicap taxi. It was no big deal.
You
But
mean
now,
able body, not
yeah.
normal, because nobody's normal.
Sure. Yeah, that's probably a bad way to label it. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. My political correctness is pretty bad there, right? I'm calling us not normal by saying that, but you know what I
Kick
mean.
him
Like,
off the channel instantly.
yeah, I got you canceled. Able-bodied people could use them as well, right? So now,
Right.
though, you end up waiting hours to get a taxi there, and at certain times of the day, you just can't. And the last one I was there, I was at the airport, and we were waiting so long for a taxi. Like, they have like these radios, and we were waiting and waiting. After like 2.5 hours, I asked the person, I was like, "Hey, man, like, how long is this gonna be?" And they're like, 5 more minutes. I was like, "Okay." And then they shift changed, and a new guy got there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was like,
Wow.
"This is ridiculous." So what I did is I was like, well, I told my wife, I was like, "You go down there and just kind of wait." I was like, "I'm probably about to make a scene, and I don't want you really to get in the way or like be too embarrassed." And she was like, what?" And I was like, "Just go down there." And then so I wheeled out kind of into like their traffic of where their taxi lane is. And I just started rolling down the taxi lane and going up to each one and be like, "Hey, man, you got a handicap taxi coming?" And the guy,
Yep.
the police guy there, they're not really police, but they're like airport
Yeah.
security, I guess, or something. He was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, man, you can't be doing that. You're going to hold up the line." I said, "That sucks for you, man. That's not my problem." I was like, "You have a choice. You can either get a handicap taxi for me, or you can call the police. But either way, I'm going to get a ride somewhere, you know?"
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
like, and literally they had a handicap taxi there in less than 5 minutes after I did that. And I asked the driver, I was like, "Man, it's hard to get a taxi." He goes, "No, we're around." I said, "Well, didn't you hear your raise?" Like, "Yeah, we heard it." He told me, he said, we don't like to take the handicap rides because they don't tip well." I was like, "Oh, so
Yeah.
you heard it the whole time and you just ignored it." He was like, "Yeah." But he's like, here's my number if you ever need me." And I was just like, wow, what an ass. But I did keep the number
Wow.
and I did use him. But I kept that in mind. Like, he actually was sitting there the entire time and just didn't want to take the call,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like one of those things. But he said too, it's just because they're all Uber and Lyft now. There's no, there's just no thing in place for that to police that like there was. So it creates this huge, that little thing just, because they don't have a regulating thing or behind
Right.
it, it creates a huge problem.
There's about 4 things I want to bring up regarding that. So you have no idea. Okay, so first off, uh, I went to an Aerosmith concert a couple of years back. I left the concert like 30 minutes before it was done so I can go catch the last bus home, right? And it was downtown Phoenix. So it should be pretty accessible, right? So yeah, by the way, in the chat right there, Chris the one, he's like one of my mods. He's been with me since day one. That's my homie, by the way.
Don't cancel me, Chris. Don't cancel me. I didn't mean anything by the normal people.
He's cool, Chris. Don't kick him out. All right, so real quick, let me see. So I left the concert earlier. I got to the bus stop, which, because I was at front row, it literally took me about 45 minutes to work my way out of the crowd. In a wheelchair, you can't see eye level. So I was just going through a sea of people. I could have been like zigzagging and not even know it, right? I was just trying to get out.
Yeah.
So I finally get out. I get to the bus stop and I just missed the bus. Last bus. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm sitting there listening to the rest of the concert and I'm like, shit, I should have just stayed at the concert, right? So I call like every cab. I look up everywhere I could on my phone. No cab, no wheelchair cab. And we're talking, it was a Friday night and it was about, I don't know, 10:30 at night.
In what area?
Not too
What
late.
area?
Downtown Phoenix, major
Phoenix. Okay,
metropolitan area, big city.
Oh, yeah, man. you come to DC, and if you want a tax, I live in DC area. If you try to get handicapped taxi, I don't think you could get one. I don't even know how you. I use a wheelchair. I have no idea how you would even get one.
Right. Yeah,
Like
I was
like I don't know what you do.
I was stuck for 4 hours. From what I understood, I called every cab place. From what I understood, there was literally only one vehicle that had a lift on it. And again, the same thing you said. There's just no money in it. So most wheelchair cab places shut down at between 5 and 7 o'clock p.m. because their government contracts to take people in wheelchairs to medical appointments are done. You know what I mean? Like, then it's just private, and there's not many, and it's not good pay, blah, 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 blah. And then, so that brings me to my next point. So Uber was getting pressured to offer some kind of accessibility option for the same reason that you said before earlier. They took over the taxis. Now it's Uber. And like I said, they're all 1099. They don't have to, comply or worry about any of that. They're just, contractors. So Uber was really pushed into a corner, and they're like, okay, well, we'll develop this thing called Uber Wave, WAV, wheelchair accessible vehicle. And it's kind of like ordering like an Uber Black or Deluxe or whatever. You just select that you want Uber Wave, right?
Yes.
But again, in Phoenix, downtown, weekday, in the middle of the day, I couldn't get cab for hours on Uber Wave. There isn't none.
So they added the option as an illusion. It's not actually there. You click it and the timer will never go down because there are none. They just literally added a button to make people stop complaining. Like, there's a handicap accessible option there. It would be like taking a door, like you have a door to a store and you literally put a handicap sign on it and then you lock the door, but put the open sign under it, like good luck getting that door open, bro.
Or it'll be like a door in front of stairs, and then it'll put like handicap accessible like paint, and then just paint over the stairs to make it look like it's flush.
Oh yeah. Oh man, to change topics on you, to tell you about accessibility things though. When I went to Thailand last year, so the last time I was there before that was like 15 years before that, So it was a 15-year gap and when I went to go there. The first time I went was when I was like 23 with one of my buddies. And it was not accessible at all. And I knew that. That's why I took one of my buddies with me. And he's a big dude. And he had to carry me up a lot of stairs and down a lot of stairs. We had to have a lot of awkward bathroom experiences together. Definitely pooped in some holes on the ground. Like, yeah. So anyway, this time when I went, man, the infrastructure and stuff, dude, they have in the main cities and stuff, they have handicap like stair lift things for wheelchairs. They actually have people who come out and assist you, like just like Johnny on the spot will run out there and like they know how to operate the equipment and they will like hook your chair up and assist you up and down the stairs. They have people on the sky rails that will like assist you, make sure you get on the train and make sure you get off the train. And not only do they make sure you get off the train, they will make sure you get to whatever destination you're going to. And this is like no charge, like just what they do. They have handicap accessible rest stops now. Everywhere I went, they did. Even like in the middle of the jungle where you don't even know where you're going, like these big highways, they have like rest stops like they do here in the US, but I would say they were cleaner and better. And I was like, damn, they went from like before it was rough. And now it's like they've actually taken a step like better than any US city I've been in. Like that's really bad for the US. Like, so this country is tiny, and probably doesn't, what I mean? And now they've become more, they still have their issues with accessibility. Don't get me wrong, but I could travel around Bangkok, Thailand easier than I can travel around Washington, DC, like 10 times easier.
Honestly, I think that's primarily, and I'm not discounting it, and that's awesome that they have that, but it's probably because huge tourists, right?
What's porous? What's
a tourist destination?
Not really. No, like
really? Okay.
Yeah, for example, one of the towns I went into, like literally, like we were the only white people. Like people were like following us around, man. They thought we were like celebrities or something. Like, what are you guys doing? Like little kids, you could tell they'd never seen a wheelchair before. They're like
You
following
are a
me around.
celebrity.
But it
You're
was
the
funny, dude.
one and only.
Yeah. But I mean, but you're right, though. Some areas definitely were rough. And the tourist areas were even better than the non-tourist areas. And there's still, like, they have a lot of street and sidewalks. So if you go there in a wheelchair, you definitely have to plan it out ahead of time. Get somebody to scout it out ahead of time for you as well.
Yeah.
Because there are definitely, like, I ran into some real big safety hazards, like in some of the little cities. Actually, tourist areas are kind of the hardest ones. But, like, there's a storm drain, for example, and they had a rug. They had, like, a green rug set over the storm drain. So the problem with that wheelchair is your wheels fall between the slots, but when there's a rug over it, you can't see the slots.
Oh.
So I almost got to eat the asphalt once because of that, but I had somebody pushing my chair pretty fast. Luckily I saw it because it was raining and I could see the water going over the rug. So I had to put down the handbrakes and be like, whoa, like, stop this. We're about to eat it, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, so you still have a lot of issues. A lot of sidewalks are too narrow. Stuff like that, but I'm just saying, 15 years ago, though, huge jump. I was kind of mind blown just by the advances they've made in the accessibility compared to what it was before there was.
Right.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the problem too is they don't know. Like, even if they want to be like 100% accessible, the problem is they don't know how.
And they don't know what to do. But
they don't know what to do.
They're very willing to help you. Like, I ran into that at one of the hotels. They were super willing to help, but you could tell they didn't even know what to do, but they're like, tell us what to do. We'll help you, So I appreciate that mentality, though. That's good.
Right. No, I mean, that's the start of change. So, yeah. I just moved into a new apartment complex here, right?
Yeah.
Funny story. They have a lift for their pool. Okay. And I was like, no way. Like, this is a brand new apartment complex. Like, literally, I was one of the first people in. Like, it got delayed a week because they had like permits and stuff for building, like they were still building on the property. So I got like one of the very first ones. So I got one of the ADA apartments, right? So like all my doorways are big, the hallway's big, the bathroom's big, there's rails, the whole nine, right? All the outlets where I could reach it. Very cool. Yeah. But when I heard that they had a pool that had a lift on it, I about died. I was like, I'm home. I was so excited. Yeah. And then
did you use it?
Yeah. So this is what. So I got a whole story here. So what happened was, I called them up and I'm like, hey, I want to use the pool, right? And they're like, okay, cool. Yeah, you just gotta let us know like ahead of time because the maintenance guy has to go and put the battery in there for the lift, right? I'm like, okay, that's cool. Kind of lame. And I mean, again, grateful, but kind of lame that like I have to pre-plan or you know what I mean, like a day ahead of time and stuff. Kind of stupid, right? I mean, like most tenants wouldn't have to if they want to use the pool. They just unlock the gate, go swimming. So they should come up with a better option with that. But again, very happy that they have that and not to complain about that. But just wanted to bring that up. But here's what happened. So I tell them, I say, okay, I want to go swimming tomorrow night. Can you have them leave the battery in there so I can use it tomorrow night? They're like, okay, yeah. All right, cool. So that night comes, I go out there to get in the pool, grab the controller, move the seat to where I can get onto it. I get on it and I get in. I like hover over the water, go down, and guess what? The lift does not go low enough for me to be buoyant. Like it literally just gets my balls wet. So
Yeah.
like for you to transfer in and out of a chair out of water, you got to be neutrally buoyant, right? Like I literally had to jump off the seat to get into the water.
Yeah.
And then getting back out, I had to put like my head on the pool decking and have somebody else go in the pool to lift my legs. Like I'll lift up on them so I get my butt high enough out of the water to get it on the seat to get out.
Yeah.
Because I mean, to put it in perspective, when I was in the pool, right next to the chair, the seat was at my shoulder height.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, how are you? I mean, somebody's in a wheelchair and they're going to jump 2 feet in the water to get up on this chair to get out. Stupid design.
Not happening.
Awesome that they have it. They thought that they had themselves covered because they bought it, but they didn't think. You know what I mean? Like they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. But then it gets worse. It gets worse. So, to move the lift, it doesn't just have up and down, but it also has a controller so you can turn like left and right to go above the water or out of the water, you know, to spin the pole, right?
Yes.
Like you're not supposed to do it manually with your hand, like there's warnings on it, stuff like that. So here's what happened. When I moved it, the seat doesn't lock in that position. The pole is free. So I don't know how much you know about transferring in and out of wheelchairs. But
Yeah.
here's what happened. I got out of the pool. I'm sitting there on the lift. The seat's higher than my wheelchair. I go to transfer over to the wheelchair. As soon as I get 50-50, like half in the wheelchair, half in the lift swings out from me and I fall on the cool decking head first. My butt's still in the seat in the wheelchair.
Oh shit.
Dude, I smacked the back of my head. And it was like the first thing that hit the pool decking. Like that's the first thing that hit when I fell.
That's how you caught yourself.
Like, yeah, totally. I still to this day, and that was a week ago Wednesday, I'm still waking up lightheaded, seeing blurry vision stuff for like first couple hours I wake up.
Oh shit, man.
I think I got a concussion or something from it. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. So yeah. So are you like? But you're kind of like okay now. You still have that, but you're not like. But you didn't have to go to the hospital right away or nothing, right? Like how did? Well, yeah. Go ahead and finish the story.
No, I was gonna say I probably honestly should have, but
yeah,
I didn't.
I wouldn't have either.
I mean, first off, I'm less than a mile from our county hospital, which is where they'd probably take me, and I'd rather just die.
Yeah, I'm with you. So how did you get back in your chair though? Like somebody picked you up?
I had to call the fire department.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that's like because I mean you're not like a tiny guy, you know, like it's not like and it's always like hard for people. Like if the people don't really know you, they're like super uncomfortable usually to help too. Like they don't really want to just lift you, especially just hit your head. Like you don't want to.
They don't want to hurt.
They don't want to hurt you more,
themselves, right?
Or hurt you more. Like they don't know what injury that caused. So I've only fallen out of my chair kind of like and hit my head one time, and it's fairly recently. It was like it was last year. My wife was just pushing my chair, and we were going to like a Verizon store, and like there was like a ramp, and it goes down, and then it had like a weird lip, like a curve, like in the street just had like a bump, and it was just enough of the bump to catch the front wheels of my chair, and I didn't see it. Like I didn't think it was gonna catch either, because my hands. I made the mistake if I had my like hands in my hoodie pocket, so I had no hands ready or nothing. So like, she's pushing not that fast, really, just normal walking speed. I'd say maybe a little faster than normal walking speed. And I had my hands in my hoodie pocket because I can still move my arms like decent. I'm really weak, but at least I can move my arms like a little bit. I can move them a little. Like just I'm not much of a show off. I can't even raise my hands above my head. You know what I mean? Wow. But yeah, so I had my hands in my pocket, and then like, she hit the lip thing, and dude, I flew forward out of my chair, and I hit my head on the concrete, right in the middle of the street because it's an intersection. So cars are like a busy intersection too. So there's all these cars at the stop sign waiting, And when I say busy, I mean it's like DC. You know, it's like
Yeah.
each stop sign, each side of the road's like 15 cars, 20 cars deep. And I'm
Wow.
just laying there with my head, I just hit my head on the concrete. And this guy got out of his car and a couple people came over, and because it's a busy shopping area too. And this guy came over and he kind of like picked me up and put me in my chair, you know, and he's like, you good? You good? And I know he just wanted to get past because he's in one of the cars. And I was like,
Right.
you know, and I feel like I'm pretty tough. And most time I'm just like, yeah, I'm good. I just suck it up and say, yeah, I'm good. And this time, like, dude, I was
Out of it.
so, yeah, man. I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I said, no, I'm not good. I was like, I'm not good. Cause I was like, you know, when you get blood drawn or something, you're like blacking out.
Yeah.
That was me. Like, I was like, dude, I was like literally
Damn.
like blacking out. And I was like, fuck, I was like, I'm passing out. Like, cause I hit my head so hard. And,
Yeah.
yeah, so she pushed me off to the side, you know, and then one of the guys is like over there, instead of like helping, he's like blaming my wife for it, like just like giving her like the third degree,
What
like,
the
why were you
fuck?
going so fast? Blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, oh my God. There's like this whole thing, you know, he's like, you need to be more careful. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So she's getting like
Wow.
bitched at by some guy.
Wow.
And like, yeah. So I ended up being all right. And like, same thing. I probably should have gone to the hospital, but then again, I'm fine. Like, I
Yeah.
survived, but like, it's probably just a pretty bad concussion, you know? But yeah, man, I just caught myself with my head. Like, so I know what you mean by just hitting like your head like that sucks. Like, I actually never, that's the first time I've ever done that where I've just like completely caught I mean, I
Mhm.
had one time when I was kind of drunk and like I still was pretty able bodied. Like, I could still get in my chair because I get gradually worse over time. Like, I could still get in my chair from the ground if I had to because my upper
Right.
body strength at the time was still pretty good. And I remember one time I fell and I hit my head so hard I was like bleeding from my nose. like, like
What?
probably, yeah. But
Ah.
but that phased me less than this did. Like, this was worse somehow, you know? And I don't know, maybe I'm
Yeah.
just older, but yeah. So it's like, fuck, man. Like, hitting your head like that is like no joke, I guess is my point. Like,
Yeah.
I would say if you're still having like issues soon, I would definitely go to a doctor because like you never know. You could have some kind of like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Maybe like, you know, you could have some other issue though.
Yeah. I'm not gonna argue with it. I should
Yeah.
a week and a couple days later I should be fine.
Yeah, you should.
But
I mean, I hit my head hard. I was good after 2 days, you know?
yeah. Lucky.
But, yeah. But yeah, man, that sucks. So would the apartment complex, they say something about the pool lift, or like they try to modify it, or what was the end
So
result of that?
they told me that I should do two things. Go to my like tenant portal and put in a maintenance request so they can make the lift like go down far enough or whatever. I don't know if they do. And also if they like put it so like it locks in position, like when you turn. I don't think they
Yeah.
could do it. I don't know what's going to happen out of it, but that they told me to fill out a maintenance request for that and like a statement of what happened. I'm sure they're just worried about me suing them or something. I'm not interested in suing them, but
Yeah.
it definitely got to get fixed.
Yeah, I would just put together the request, man. I don't know. If you need any help with that, like send me over a story of what happened. I can always retype it for you, make it look nice, and send it back to you, man. If it helps you, just let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. I mean, I was like just super stoked that they even have it. You know.
No, I get it, man. Like you said, like change is the way, man. It's good that they had the enough awareness to try to put it in. It just sucks it wasn't really installed properly. It's kind of like you said, though. It's really hard for people when they don't know anybody in a wheelchair. They don't know how to help. Like if they have first-hand experience. And, I actually shocked. I went to a dentist in my area recently, like a new dentist a couple of years ago, actually. And the guy was like, do you need help transferring to a little dentist chair? I was kind of like reluctant to take his help, and he's like, my dad used wheelchair, I can help you. Okay. So he helped me, and I was like, wow, that's actually really helpful. Like he actually did it the way you're supposed to, And it's because he's had first-hand experience. Like he was better at it than my wife was, just because he's a lot stronger. But like he knew the techniques and stuff. Because a lot of times when people say, "Hey, let me help you transfer my province," they just start they grab like your arm or something. They just start trying to drag you over. I'm like, that doesn't work, man. You can't just grab my arm and drag me.
I'm like, ow, that hurts.
They just try to pull up my limbs. The only thing that I can't, like, I can kind of balance myself with my arm and stuff. Don't take that one point of stability I have and pull it away.
Yeah, the same here. For me, it's like my leg. Like, I'm gonna move somewhere, and like somebody's helping me transfer that doesn't know me, and they'll grab, like you said, your arm and your leg, and I'm like, don't grab my leg. If you grab my leg, I'm gonna fall. Like that's what I use to stabilize.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And then also, another thing is like, our significant others catch a lot of shit, don't they? Like you said that guy was like, or that person was yelling at your wife.
Yeah, he was like berating her over it, like she's like a child.
Yeah.
Like she's pushed his chair properly like 99 times. We've known each other since 2008. Like, cut her a break,
Right.
Like,
well,
one accident in more than 10 years. I think it's okay.
So, funny story. One time I went to, I was in my minivan, like my wheelchair minivan.
Yeah.
And pull up to Walmart, and like my wife's driving, and she pulled up. I'm in the passenger side, just like there's no chairs, like just open for the wheelchair. So, anyways, so we pull up to Walmart in the handicap parking spot, and she gets out, goes over to the side of the van to open up the ramp, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as she does, some Farmer John guy comes over in his overalls, mind you, and he starts yelling at her. He's like, "What are you doing parking there? That's for us. Somebody needs that, blah, 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 blah. And you stupid little blah, 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 are using the handicap spot." And she doesn't say anything. She just opens the sliding door, and I'm sitting there in my wheelchair. I'm like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, oh, well, I was just watching out for you guys, because, and I'm like, yeah, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, I am glad he's kind of watching out though, man, because that's been an issue around where I live. Sometimes people park in the spots, and I used to not park in the handicap spots for a long time, man, because I was like, oh, people need them more than me. And then one time I was at Costco with one of my friends I've known, like third grade, and he's like, "What are you doing, man? You're parking so far away." I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to take a handicap spot. That's for people who need it." He's like, "Dude," he's like, "You are now that guy." I'm like, all right, fair enough. So I parked there. He's like, "You're driving, you use the wheelchair." He's like, "You need an extra spot next to you. You are that guy." I'm like,
"You are that guy."
I'm like, all right, I guess you're right. I am that guy now. But my thinking was always like, hey, if I had someone to help me or something. At the time I was like 23, 24, like I have it pretty good compared to maybe someone who is riding solo, or the old grandma who can't walk that far. Like, at the time, me wheeling from the back of the parking lot in wasn't that hard,
Well, that's the thing too. So like, people that are, I don't want to say legitimately disabled, but like real, I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking for. Somebody's going to say something bad about what I said, but like, we internalize it, right? You're like, oh, I don't need that, or whatever. That's for like someone that's really crippled.
Yeah.
I do it too. I do it all the time. It's just the nature of the beast.
You're like, yeah, I'm not that bad off, and you're like, oh, yeah.
We'll leave that handicap spot for someone who needs it.
Yeah. Well, I still do that to this day though. Sometimes, like if I'm with my wife and it's a really busy area and there's like another spot available that will work for us, sometimes I won't take the handicap spot because I'm just like, man, somebody with like because I know other people use wheelchairs, and I'm just like, if they don't have the right ramp space and everything, they're screwed, And I know that if it were me, I would want that spot if I had, like, you know, if I was there by myself or something, or with somebody who's not as good at helping me, I'd want that spot, you know. So we still do that sometimes. We try to be like good about it, you know. But then you have people who. So what I do now, though, back when I used to work there all the time, in my truck, I used to keep tow rope and like a big tow strap with a really high weight right. And I mean, I remember there would be people. I've definitely lost my shit on some people's part. I remember this one guy who's like, "Well, I'm only gonna be there for 5 minutes." I was like, "Dude, you can move your car." Or my man here riding with me is gonna hook up the tow strap to your car. It's gonna be somewhere, but it's gonna be in that spot. You know, and he moved, but it's like, you know, it's ridiculous. You know, like last time I was at I went to a bar with one of my friends. And we got there and there was a fucking motorcycle parked in the handicap spot. In the center of it.
I see that a lot.
And I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, so I went in there and I was, you know. He was like, you know, whose bike is that? And somebody's like, oh, that's my bike. And he was like, you have 5 minutes to move it. And he's like, what do you mean? He was like, you have 5 minutes to move it, or I'm gonna move it for you. You know, it's like, damn, dude, just we're nuclear on that man. But yeah, like, what's the dude gonna do? Argue about it? It's like, move your fucking bike.
Yeah, I mean, you're not disabled. You're on a bike. In fact, you're on a bike. You could go just about any fucking where you want.
And it was like a busy parking lot, and they actually have like an area behind the place for motorcycles to park.
Really?
So it was like, there was like really no justification for it, other than the person was so lazy they didn't want to drive around the back of the place. Like, they didn't want to drive the extra 100 yards, you know.
So they were using the douche defense.
Yeah, basically, they didn't really have a defense, but yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. But and I also had one like that, another motorcycle, where I went to a place where I used to work as a kid, and I went there and there's a motorcycle parked in between handicap spots, and I was like, and then I was like, that's kind of a douchey thing to do. And then I found out it's the guy I used to work for. It was his motorcycle.
No way.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, well, but you know what? I said something to him about it, and I've never seen a motorcycle parked there ever again. So I wasn't thinking about it, you know.
You know what that's called? Progress.
Yeah, like I just approached it from a aggressive point. I was like, hey man, I knew it was his because I saw his helmet there when I got in there. But I was like, hey man, I just parked there, but somebody parked their motorcycle between the spots. Like, that's kind of an asshole move. He's like, oh, that was mine. I was like, oh, I was just kidding, man. And he's like, oh, you're right, it is. I was like, man, don't park like that. He's like, okay, you know, like he's just kind of okay. He didn't do it again.
Yeah, you're like, oh, no, it's not an asshole move. Actually, kind of, a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah. I kind of call him an asshole in a nice way, but, you know, I still see him and say hi, you know. I have no ill will for it.
But then again, just like that guy said, oh, it's only going to be 5 minutes. Well, I'm sure in their mind, they're like, oh, it's okay. But you never know. Oh, I gotta tell you a funny story. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the gameplay for this one. Funny story. This guy, let me tell you how dumb people could be, and I'm sure you already know. Hey, a minute ago we had 4 people on stream. So on Central Avenue, right here, just a little bit north of downtown, there's like Central Avenue, instead of like being like a regular road, like sidewalks stuff, it's just like a 2-lane road, and it has like dirt trails on the side, like on this like couple-mile path, like it's like a famous bike path, right?
Yeah.
So there's no sidewalks or anything. So I was visiting my girlfriend that lived on Central Avenue, and I used to spend the night over there, and then in the morning I'd get up and go over to my apartment, yada yada. So at night after work, I would take the bus to her place, and then I'd get off on Central and then go up to, you know, where she lived at. And like maybe 3 out of 5 days, there was this guy. And again, remember, the street goes like this, 2 lanes, right? And then on either side was just dirt, like a dirt trail, like,
yeah,
3 wheelchairs wide. That's it, right? This guy, 3 days a week, give or take, he would always park. Like they have parking by the houses, but he literally would park on the dirt, like where the sidewalk was.
Yeah.
And Central Avenue is super busy. Like I'm not gonna sit in front of his truck and wait for traffic to die down. Like it's not gonna happen for hours.
Yeah.
Right. So I would always have to like go through the bush or like go around or like trying to like stop traffic to go around this guy. Finally, one day, I was coming home and I caught him getting out of his car. It's a big truck. It's a big truck. And he's getting out of his truck and I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know, every day I come here and I'm staying right here. So like every day I have to go into traffic and I can't get around you because you're parking on the sidewalk. Right. And he's like, he looks at me, gets all mad. He goes, well, what the fuck do you want me to do? He's like, I don't have any place to park my car. And I go, what the fuck do you want me to do with it? I'm in a wheelchair. You're worried about where to park your car. I'm trying to safely get home without going in the road. Like, when he said, when he goes, well, what do you want me to do? Like, what's going through this guy's head?
Yeah.
Like I'm arguing with a guy in a wheelchair who's asking me not to park on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And he's right.
Everybody has those low points in their life. That's probably his.
Like, it just blew me away that he was arguing. I mean, I'm not like so obstinate or anything like that, but I mean, like, you don't have any ground to stand on.
Yeah. It wasn't the reaction you were expecting, huh?
Definitely not. I mean, most people will be like, "Oh yeah, my bad," or whatever, dude, and then they do it, right?
Yeah.
Those are the two most popular responses I get to something like that. Like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry," or "Yeah, whatever, dude," and then they do it. Yeah. But this guy was like, "Well, what do you want me to do?"
Yeah. What do you want me to do?
I don't know.
Oh man,
maybe
not
park somewhere else.
Yep.
And I looked it up. There's actually a city ordinance. If a car parks on the sidewalk or where a sidewalk is and it impedes mobility aid, it is a $600 ticket.
Yeah. But sometimes you run into things with, if it's private property, it's super hard to get some cop to come out there and enforce that.
Exactly.
That's where the tow strap comes in handy, man.
I was so in my new apartment, I was cruising down the side road the other day, and I always cruise like a bike, like on the road like a car. It's not the safest. I do not condone it for anybody else other than me, but I do it, right? And so I was cruising down the road, and I see this other guy in a wheelchair, and he's on the sidewalk like a good wheelchair power user is supposed to do.
Yeah.
And he's cruising on the sidewalk, and this person has like a gate to their driveway, and they have the gate open where the gate like goes across the sidewalk. Yeah. So this guy in a wheelchair had to turn around, go back a block, get down in the road, go in the road for that block, and then get back up on the other side. And I'm like, again, awareness, you know?
Yeah. Crazy, man.
But you know, I can't really say anything because I've been disabled my whole life, right? You might have, or may be able to have a different perspective, but for me, it's hard for me to be like, damn, that guy's a idiot. But then again, if I wasn't disabled, would I be aware of that too? Like,
yeah. You know, the other thing that falls into it, it doesn't matter able-bodied, disabled, or what. Some people are just like really how do I put this? Some people are just not aware of like what they're doing. Like you see it in every aspect of life,
Yeah.
right? Like some people are just like oblivious to what they're doing around them. Like
Hmm.
they just, you think about how many people, if you didn't have a stop sign, would stop at the intersection, right? They would just
Right.
probably, some people would just go, they would just drive right through. So I think like leaving like a gate open or something like that, they're just people who they don't like, they're not aware enough of their surroundings to even like, they're not even doing it maliciously. They just are
It's
kind of space
yep.
cadetting, you know?
And a good example of that, I saw this on TikTok just recently. Somewhere in, I believe it's the UK, maybe, probably UK. They
Yeah.
have this pedestrian walking thing where like it's a very, very busy road for cars and people. And they have lights and big stop signs for cars to stop for pedestrians across the street. But apparently that didn't work. Cars were just doing what they wanted. So what they started doing is they put a bucket on both sides of the crosswalk full of
Oh, with the
bricks.
bricks, the fake
Yeah.
bricks. Yeah.
I mean, genius.
Yeah. Seen that. That's funny. Yeah. I mean that's why they have crosswalks now with like lights and the whole crosswalk will have
Right.
like little lights that flash and stuff. But
Yep.
yeah, I don't think it's necessarily people like something like that gate thing. It's probably not wasn't even done maliciously. They just aren't. There's lots of people who walk through a door and leave the door open. Um,
Right.
it's also comes down to manners too, right? Like how many times have you been in a restaurant or something
Well,
and you go to leave and then
right.
somebody's like like wheelchair or not, just saying people,
Right.
human nature, right? Like if I go through a door, I'm gonna make sure the door doesn't like hit the next person in the face. I'm gonna grab the door, wait. But a
Right.
lot of people would just go through the door and they never look back to see what was behind them. You know,
You know what I think
that's like a big thing.
the disconnect is?
What's that?
Not being able to beat your children anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But that's also like, so for me, if I go to a restaurant, that's like a thing for me now, like for hostess and stuff. Like when I go to a restaurant, I actually like, I view it negatively if I show up to a restaurant and no one helps with the doors. If the hostess person stands at the door and they sit there behind their booth waiting to seat you, but like they see you at the doors and they don't come open the
Yep.
doors for you, handicap or not, like even normal
Dude.
people, and they don't help you open doors, like that to me reflects negatively on a restaurant when I go to a restaurant. Like
Right.
if the person just stands there the whole time, waits for you to walk up to them, and you don't like if they aren't proactively like going out and like opening a door for somebody, whether it's like an elderly person or whatever, like that to me reflects negatively on that person and that establishment, because it means no
Right.
one, they didn't pick up how to do it on their own, but two, no one took the time to train them on how to do it and how to be like, good manners. And then that's
Yep.
going to, like if they were a kid and that was their first job and someone trained them properly, like how to do the doors and stuff, it's like something that would stick with them, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, you're 100%. It speaks to the character and the business, right?
Yeah,
I
like when
can't
I
tell
used to
you.
train people at work, like I used to train kids, for is a lot of their first time jobs. I'd be like, you have to go help people with this and that, and and they if some of them would look at you like, what? And it's like, hey man, it's like that's just what you do. Like that's what you got to do.
Right. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've like sitting in front of a doorway, like looking at him, and I'm like, hey, like nodding, like, hey, you gonna help me? You open the door or whatever. And then somebody will walk by and be like, hey, do you want me to open that door for you? And I'm like, sure. And I go in and I'm like, what? What? I was sitting there like, oh, I didn't know that you wanted in. So people in wheelchairs just randomly sit in front doors.
And stare at you.
Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me?
Oh fudge. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Crazy.
happens like so much. And then another thing,
Yeah.
you were talking about like public transit, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm the only person sitting at a bus stop in a wheelchair, I am super sketched out because more than likely the bus driver's just going to pass me.
Yep.
They don't want to deal with it.
Yep.
And I mean, I've been passed up by the last bus before because of that, and I'm like, what?
I've been on a bus before where at an airport, BWI, and like I've been there. I've had several different experiences there. One time I went there, the person just like got my chair in there, stood up, did all the stuff, didn't say a word, not a word. And then the next person did it. They were very friendly. And I've had the experience where I've had someone get in there and they're like, "Do I have to hook up all the straps?" And you're like, "No, it's okay. I can hold on to this bar, you know, like whatever." And they're like, "Good. I hate dealing with wheelchairs," you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, damn. Like, sorry to inconvenience you, lady. You know, so some people really do hate. They hate the fact that it inconveniences their day, but they haven't ever thought of like if they were in those shoes, what would it be like? So that is a real mentality of people. Like people really do hate to deal with it. You know.
Well, I mean, they can get a job at McDonald's.
Exactly, and like that lady, like she thought I'd be totally cool with her saying that, you know, and I didn't say anything, but in my head I was like, "What a bitch," you know. Like she's happy she doesn't have to hook up the straps, you know. But like honestly, now like it's not. I have to hook up the straps because if I don't have the strength to like a hard stop or like I don't have the strength to hold that chair is cruising, man, because the brakes don't hold it. Like I can't.
That's what
like,
I do.
I can't.
When I get on the bus, some of the bus drivers calls me 2 straps because I tell them when I get on there, I want 2 straps on the back. Yeah. If not, if the bus stops short, I will slide. I'll go flying.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, they get so upset about that. They're like, they don't want to do the tie down, you know?
And
they're just,
you know, that though stems from them now being in both situations for myself, all 3 situations, you know, one where I didn't need them at all, and then where I didn't really need them, and then when I needed them. I think it stems from it's hard to imagine what it's like to need the straps.
right.
Like, 'cause for me, I like when I used to not need them, I could just hold myself in place. Like it felt very easy. Like it didn't feel like it took any effort to hold myself in place, if that makes sense. So I feel like they feel like they're doing something safety that's not. They feel like it's just like a going through the motions. It's not actually important because they don't realize like how much your chair will actually roll and stuff like that.
Right.
That's what I think.
Sometimes when they hook me up, they don't even like they do literally bare minimum. Like they'll just put it on there, not like tighten it down or anything like that. Like I can't even tell you how many times where like they're like, "Oh yeah, do you want straps?" I'm like, "Yeah," and then they go in the back, and you hear them clanking, and then the bus driver's done. They go up to the seat to get ready to take off, and then boom, you hear the strap fell off as soon as the bus started moving because they didn't like crank it down or anything. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, so like my new thing now is like if I can tell they're kind of annoyed or something, I'd be like, "Yeah, man, I used to just hold myself in place, but you know, over time I've gotten worse, and it's just this chair will just go rolling otherwise."
See, and you shouldn't have to justify it. You shouldn't have to.
I found like if you do, like it'll take more time to do it, but it's just like annoying. It's just like, oh, I really got to go through this fake speech. Like I really care.
Well, okay, and I'm guilty of that myself. You know what mine is? You know what my line is?
What?
Oh yeah, I used to never use the straps, but then one time there was like an accident and the bus had hit the brakes and I went flying. So now so I'm guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
And you're right. It does ease the blow. Like you just put some Y there for them, I guess.
Yeah. It's shit. Like you said, they shouldn't have to do it. It's like kind of silly.
Yeah, agreed. But again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I can like. Again, I've been in a chair my whole life, so I can't say, "Oh, well, they're just ignorant." Well, I mean, I'd probably be the same way, I guess, if I didn't know.
Yeah, a lot of it's just lack of experience too, right? Like I don't know. Like I guess I kind of get it, and a lot of the stuff just because like I never before I knew Rocky, I actually didn't really know anyone else who used a wheelchair. I wasn't, you know, like my wheelchair kind of like knowledge of stuff has come all from like you, Rocky, like people I met online, because I don't have outside of you guys, like I don't really, I don't have anybody else I've really known in a wheelchair.
Wow,
Like,
you need to expand your friends.
I
I'm just
know,
kidding.
right? I always tell my little brother has the same thing I do, and he's not as bad yet. He can still walk a little bit, And I always tell him, dude, you're not allowed to use the wheelchair because I'm like the token of the group. If you come in, it's my territory, man. It's my turf.
That's right.
I'm like, you better stay out of here, man. I'm the token of the group. And he just laughs, It's just like, it's like I'm the token, man. But
That's
not
so
like
funny.
just don't have that many people I know that use wheelchairs. And I mean, fortunately, right? Like you don't wish that upon anybody, but it's crazy. So I think a lot of it is lack of knowledge, right? Because
Right.
like even me, like there's so much stuff like I don't know, and I've learned from the internet, like on how to do certain things with wheelchairs. Like, um,
Oh yeah.
I'm an idiot like when it comes to a lot of this stuff because I'm like, and some of the questions are awkward to ask people, right? Because I'm like, how the fuck do I do this? How the fuck do you do that?
Right.
Like, I don't know how to do this, but this way, what I'm doing isn't working.
Yeah, well, I used to there's a place down here called Ability 360, and I
Yeah,
used to like teach a class for like new, what do you say, new
wheelchair
cripples? No,
users,
that's not right.
or disabled, like people with new
New
disabilities or
differently
whatever.
Newly differently abled people.
Okay, however you want to label it. I'm not one to get easily offended. I don't care, like, but yeah.
Right. Well, it was just like the class was like super simple, like navigating, being able to take buses or taking your chair on the road, up and down ramps, navigating through tight stuff, basic maintenance, just like little
Hey,
stuff
man,
like that.
that stuff's important, dude. I've learned a lot of that the hard way, and like I've
Yeah.
definitely like one big thing for me is like, man, I used to smash my hands all the time on doorways and people push me,
Yeah.
do stupid things. So your class, it might have not felt important to you at the time, but man, that is kind of important, dude. Like I wouldn't take something like that unless somebody forced it upon me, but I wish I would have taken something like that,
You and I are so like,
I've learned the hard way a lot of that stuff.